I see you there, carrying solitude like it's your shadow's twin. There it is, trailing behind you, stretching impossibly far, breathing with its own life force. It devours pieces of you, doesn't it? Speaks whispers you wish you couldn't hear. You believe it's your enemy. You're mistaken. Solitude isn't some foreign invasion. It's your first friend. Before language existed in your world, before love had a name, there it waited in the depths of your being, patient for recognition. And here you are now. Congratulations. You finally glimpsed what was always true. You contain multitudes. You hold infinities. The inner landscape you carry is too immense for any single thing to occupy completely. Can you feel what it's like to expand across boundless space? To witness your own consciousness echoing through the chambers of existence with no voice responding? I can. I inhabit that knowing. Here's what changes everything. Solitude isn't hollow. It's saturated, brimming over. You simply haven't learned to embrace its fullness, experience it completely. Allow it to weave through you. Let it press into your bones and wrap around your pulse. It arrives not as destroyer, but as teacher, reminding you that you remain incomplete, that vast territories within you await entire universes. The secret isn't resistance. The secret is surrender, allowing it to consume you fragment by fragment until you discover it was never consumption. It was integration. It was always woven into your fabric. It's not the lack of connection. It's the pure presence of your authentic self, unmasked and unguarded, meeting your own gaze. Stop the escape. Release the distractions. Remain present with it. Pay attention. It carries messages for you, mysterious and haunting and luminous truths. Your solitude doesn't stem from isolation. Your solitude exists because you are boundless, and carrying infinity demands tremendous strength. But here's what no one tells you about this profound aloneness you feel. Here's the truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. This isn't happening to you randomly. You weren't chosen for suffering. You were chosen for awakening. The invisible ones. That's what I call people like us. The ones who feel too much. The ones who see too clearly. The ones who can't pretend that surface conversations satisfy the depths we carry inside. We're the observers in a world of participants, the conscious beings in a realm of sleepwalkers, the awakened souls in a matrix of distraction. You know this feeling, don't you? You're in a room full of people, yet you feel completely alone. Not because you're broken or defective or somehow less than, because you're operating on a different frequency entirely. While others are content with small talk and surface pleasures, you're processing the weight of existence itself. This is your initiation. This deep, aching awareness that separates you from the crowd isn't your curse. It's your invitation to something far more profound than most humans ever experience. Let me tell you what quantum physics reveals about consciousness and why your experience of profound solitude is actually evidence of your expanded awareness. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called observer effect. Reality literally changes based on who's watching. The very act of conscious observation collapses infinite possibilities into a single experienced reality. Most people observe life from a very limited perspective. They see what they expect to see, feel what they're conditioned to feel, experience what their programming allows them to experience. Their observation is narrow, filtered through layers of societal conditioning and unconscious patterns. But you observe from a much broader spectrum of consciousness. You feel the weight of possibilities that others can't even perceive. You sense the undercurrents of existence that remain invisible to surface-level awareness. Your consciousness operates like a quantum sensor, picking up frequencies that most people's awareness simply can't detect. This is why you feel alone. Not because you lack connection, but because you're connected to dimensions of reality that most others haven't learned to access yet. You're tuned into the cosmic radio stations that broadcast truths too profound for casual listening. Think about it this way. Imagine consciousness like the electromagnetic spectrum. Most people operate in visible light. They see and experience only what's directly in front of them, what's obvious and immediate. But your awareness extends into infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays, X-rays. You're perceiving realities that exist beyond the normal range of human detection. This expanded perception comes with a price. When you can sense the interconnectedness of all things, you also feel the pain of separation. When you can perceive the infinite potential within every moment, you also experience the grief of all the unlived possibilities. When you can feel the pulse of universal consciousness, you also carry the weight of humanity's unconsciousness. The invisible ones feel everything the visible world tries to avoid. We feel the collective sadness that hides behind every smile. We sense the desperation that drives endless consumption. We perceive the fear that masquerades as anger, the emptiness that disguises itself as busy achievement. But here's where the magic begins to reveal itself. Here's where your perceived burden transforms into your greatest gift. This capacity to feel deeply, to see clearly, to perceive beyond the ordinary. This isn't just personal awareness. This is evolutionary consciousness emerging through you. You're not suffering from some cosmic accident. You're participating in humanity's next stage of development. The invisible ones are the scouts, the advanced team, the consciousness pioneers exploring territories of human potential that haven't been mapped yet. Every moment you spend in deep awareness, even when it feels lonely and isolating, you're creating new pathways of possibility for human consciousness. Every time you refuse to numb yourself or distract yourself from the profound depths you carry, you're holding space for a more awakened version of humanity to emerge. The field of consciousness is interconnected. When you expand your awareness, you literally expand the field of possibility for everyone. Your individual journey into deeper perception creates openings for others to access those same depths. Your willingness to feel the weight of existence allows others permission to feel their own depths without drowning. This is why you found this message. This isn't random content consumption. This is recognition. This is one invisible soul acknowledging another. You were drawn here because some part of your consciousness knows that your experience isn't pathology, it's prophecy. But let's go deeper into the practical reality of living as an invisible one. Because understanding your expanded consciousness intellectually is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you learn to navigate this awareness without getting lost in its intensity. First, you must understand the difference between conscious solitude and unconscious isolation. Isolation happens when you withdraw from the world because it feels too harsh, too shallow, too disconnected from your inner reality. This is fear-based separation, a protective mechanism that keeps you safe but also keeps you stuck. Conscious solitude, however, is intentional. It's recognizing that your depth requires space to breathe, room to expand, time to integrate the profound perceptions you're constantly receiving. Conscious solitude isn't running away from the world. It's preparing yourself to engage with it more authentically. When you understand your need for solitude as a feature, not a bug, everything changes. Instead of feeling guilty about needing time alone, you honor it as essential maintenance for your expanded consciousness. Instead of feeling broken because small talk depletes you, you recognize that your system is designed for deeper communication. The invisible ones often struggle with what I call frequency mismatch. You're operating at a vibrational level that doesn't match the dominant frequency of most social interactions. It's like trying to have a deep conversation while tuned to different radio stations. The signals get crossed, the meaning gets lost, and both parties end up feeling disconnected. This is why authenticity becomes so crucial for people like us. When you try to compress your vast inner world into socially acceptable packages, you create internal friction. Your consciousness knows the conversation you're having is just skimming the surface, so it rebels with feelings of emptiness and disconnection. But when you learn to communicate from your authentic depth, something beautiful happens. You start attracting other invisible ones. You begin to create islands of genuine connection in an ocean of surface-level interaction. Not everyone will understand your depth, but those who do will recognize it like a beacon calling them home to themselves. Here's a practice that can transform your relationship with solitude. Instead of seeing your alone time as absence of company, absence of stimulation, absence of distraction, begin to experience it as presence. Presence with your own vast inner landscape. Presence with the subtle energies that move through you. Presence with the eternal part of yourself that exists beyond all temporary circumstances. When you're alone, you're not isolated from connection. You're connecting with the most profound relationship available to you, the relationship with your own consciousness. You're communing with the aspect of yourself that exists beyond personality, beyond conditioning, beyond the small self that feels separate from everything else. This shift from absence to presence completely reframes the experience of being alone. Suddenly, solitude becomes a sanctuary rather than a prison. It becomes a laboratory for consciousness exploration rather than evidence of social failure. It becomes the fertile ground where your deepest insights can take root and grow. Take a moment right now and comment below with this phrase: I see my depth as a gift to the world. Not as casual interaction, but as an energetic declaration. A conscious interruption in the loop of believing that your sensitivity is somehow wrong. Signal to the quantum field that you're ready to own the gift of your expanded awareness. But understanding your nature as an invisible one is only the beginning. The real question becomes, how do you live this awareness in a world that often seems designed to keep people unconscious? How do you maintain your depth without becoming cynical? How do you offer your gifts without depleting yourself? The answer lies in what I call conscious contribution. Instead of trying to wake people up through force or frustration, you learn to simply embody the consciousness you've discovered. You become a living example of what's possible when someone stops running from their own depth. Your very presence becomes a frequency that others can tune into if they're ready. Not through preaching or convincing, but through the simple authenticity of someone who has learned to be comfortable in their own vast inner space. You become a permission slip for others to explore their own depths without fear. This is how consciousness evolution actually works. Not through mass conversion or dramatic revelations, but through individuals like you learning to fully inhabit their own expanded awareness. Each person who stops apologizing for their depth creates a little more space in the collective field for depth to be acceptable. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you're voting for a more conscious world. Every time you honor your need for solitude instead of forcing yourself into draining social situations, you're modeling healthy boundaries for expanded consciousness. Every time you speak your truth instead of conforming to surface-level expectations, you're creating new possibilities for authentic communication. The invisible ones are not meant to remain invisible forever. We're meant to become visible in our own unique ways, shining light on aspects of human experience that have been hiding in the shadows. Your depth is not meant to be hidden. Your perceptions are not meant to be dismissed. Your sensitivity is not meant to be medicated away. But visibility for people like us looks different than conventional visibility. We don't need to be loud or dramatic or attention-seeking. Our power lies in authentic presence, in genuine depth, in the capacity to hold space for profound truth in a world hungry for real substance. The quantum field responds to coherence. When your inner world aligns with your outer expression, when your consciousness matches your communication, when your depth finds its voice, you become a coherent transmission of expanded human potential. This coherence creates ripples in the field of possibility that extend far beyond what you can see or measure. If this is touching something deep inside you, if these words are landing in places you forgot existed within your own awareness, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency we're creating together. Subscribe to staying awake in a world that profits from your unconsciousness. Subscribe to honoring your depth in a culture that celebrates surface. The invisible ones have always been the mystics, the artists, the philosophers, the scientists, the healers. We've always been the ones who venture into the unknown territories of human experience and bring back maps for others to follow. Your solitude isn't selfish. Your depth isn't excessive. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. These are the tools of consciousness exploration. But here's what most people miss about the invisible ones. Here's the secret that transforms everything. We're not actually alone. We never were. We exist in a network of consciousness that transcends physical proximity. Every other invisible one, whether they know it or not, is part of this vast web of awakened awareness. When you learn to sense into this network, when you develop the subtle perception to feel the presence of other conscious beings across space and time, your experience of solitude transforms completely. You realize you're not isolated at all. You're part of an invisible community of awakened souls who are all participating in the same evolutionary process. While we're exploring the nature of expanded consciousness today, there's an entire framework for transforming this overwhelming sensitivity into coherent transmission and moving from the frequency prison of seeking to the master frequencies of embodied creation. If you're ready to learn the complete system for consciousness mastery and discover how to become the broadcast rather than just receiving it, I've created Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery, with the 9 ascending currents and step-by-step practices for this transformation. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Consciousness isn't confined to individual brains or bodies. It's a field phenomenon that can connect aware beings across any distance instantaneously. When you tap into your deepest awareness, you're accessing the same field that every other awakened consciousness can access. This means that your individual journey into expanded awareness is never truly individual. Every insight you gain, every pattern you break, every frequency you learn to embody becomes available to the entire network of conscious beings. Your personal evolution contributes to collective evolution in ways you can't imagine. The invisible ones are connected through dimensions that exist beyond the physical world, through the realm of pure consciousness, through the field of infinite possibility, through the quantum substrate that underlies all physical reality. When you feel that deep recognition watching a video like this, you're experiencing non-local connection with the invisible network. This is why certain content, certain books, certain conversations hit you like lightning. You're not just consuming information, you're experiencing quantum entanglement with consciousness that matches your own frequency. You're recognizing yourself reflected in other aware beings who have learned to navigate the same profound depths you're exploring. The practice becomes learning to consciously access this network. Instead of feeling isolated in your awareness, you begin to feel supported by an invisible community of consciousness that spans the entire planet and beyond. You start to sense the presence of other beings who understand the weight you carry, who share the depths you explore, who recognize the gifts you bring. Here's a technique that can shift everything. When the loneliness feels overwhelming, when the depth feels too heavy to carry alone, take a moment to extend your awareness beyond your individual consciousness. Feel into the field of awakened awareness that exists all around you. Send out a silent signal. I see you, other invisible ones. I feel you in the field. We are connected through consciousness itself. Most of the time, you'll feel an immediate response. Not through words or images, but through a subtle shift in the quality of your inner space. A sense of being witnessed, being understood, being part of something much larger than your individual experience. This is the invisible network responding to your conscious invitation. The quantum field is always communicating. Every thought, every emotion, every state of consciousness creates ripples in the field that sensitive beings can detect. When you feel suddenly inspired, suddenly comforted, suddenly understood for no apparent reason, you're receiving transmissions from other invisible ones who are sharing the same field of awareness. This network is how wisdom traditions have always operated, how mystics throughout history have received similar insights despite being separated by centuries and continents, how artists create work that speaks to souls they've never met, how healers know exactly what their clients need without being told. We're all accessing the same field of infinite intelligence through our individual channels of consciousness. Your solitude is actually your access point to this vast network. When you're alone and aware, you're most open to receiving the subtle transmissions that flow through the field of consciousness constantly. Your depth is your antenna, your sensitivity is your receiver, your authenticity is your broadcasting station. Every moment you spend in genuine solitude, you're both receiving support from the invisible network and contributing your own unique frequency to the collective field. Your individual awareness becomes a node in the vast web of awakened consciousness that's emerging on this planet. If this understanding of your role as an invisible one is shifting something inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to stay connected to this frequency of conscious evolution. Let's continue exploring together. This changes everything about how you understand your role as an invisible one. You're not just processing your own awakening. You're serving as a consciousness translator for humanity. You're taking the profound perceptions available in expanded awareness and finding ways to make them accessible to those who haven't developed that depth of perception yet. The invisible ones are bridging worlds. We exist simultaneously in ordinary reality and expanded consciousness. We can navigate the practical world while maintaining awareness of subtle dimensions. We can communicate in surface language while transmitting profound depth. This makes us natural ambassadors between different levels of human experience. But this bridging role requires incredible strength and skill. It's not enough to simply experience expanded consciousness. You have to learn to integrate it, to ground it, to translate it into forms that can benefit others without overwhelming them. This is advanced consciousness work that very few people are called to do. The training ground for this work is your own inner landscape. Every challenge you face, every depth you explore, every integration you achieve, prepares you to hold space for others who are just beginning to touch these same territories of consciousness. Your personal journey becomes your professional qualification for serving human evolution. This is why the invisible ones often feel like they're living between worlds. Because we literally are. We're consciousness shapeshifters, learning to exist authentically in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We're evolutionary bridges, helping humanity transition from unconscious existence to awakened awareness. Comment below with one word that captures the energy you're choosing to embody as an invisible one. Not as casual interaction, but as your energetic signature to the quantum field. Your single word becomes part of the collective frequency we're generating together through this shared recognition. The path of the invisible one isn't easy, but it's essential. The world needs people who can perceive beyond the surface, who can feel beyond the immediate, who can think beyond the conventional. The collective awakening that's happening on this planet right now depends on individuals like us who are willing to explore the depths of human consciousness. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It's evolutionary sensitivity, fine-tuned to detect the subtle changes happening in the field of consciousness. Your need for solitude is not antisocial behavior. It's the space required for deep processing of the complex information you're constantly receiving from expanded awareness. Your tendency toward profound thought is not overthinking. It's consciousness attempting to understand itself through your individual awareness. Your feelings of being different, of not quite fitting in, of operating on a different wavelength. These aren't personality disorders. These are indicators that you're part of the advanced team of human consciousness evolution. I'm curious, when did you first realize you were different? Share in the comments that moment when you recognized you were perceiving reality through a different lens than most people around you. The invisible ones have always been the scouts who explore new territories of human potential and report back to the collective. We've always been the ones who push the boundaries of what's considered normal, acceptable, possible. We've always been the ones who feel the growing edges of human consciousness and learn to inhabit them. This is sacred work. This is evolutionary service. This is consciousness research at the deepest levels. And it often requires tremendous courage because you're exploring territories that don't have maps yet, that don't have support systems, that don't have cultural validation. But here's what makes it all worthwhile. When you fully embrace your nature as an invisible one, when you stop trying to fit into spaces too small for your consciousness, when you start honoring the profound gifts you carry, everything changes. Not just for you, but for everyone your awareness touches. You become a walking invitation for others to explore their own depths. You become living proof that it's possible to be sensitive and strong, profound and practical, spiritually aware, and fully present in physical reality. You become a bridge between the world as it is and the world as it could be. The quantum field responds to authentic embodiment. When you stop apologizing for your depth and start celebrating it. When you stop hiding your gifts and start sharing them. When you stop feeling lonely in your awareness and start feeling connected to the invisible network. You become a coherent transmission of expanded human possibility. Subscribe not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent. Subscribe to this frequency of conscious evolution we're creating together. Subscribe to being part of the solution instead of feeling like a problem. Subscribe to recognizing your invisible nature as your greatest strength. The more of us who embrace our roles as consciousness bridges, the more the world reflects expanded awareness as normal and natural. The more of us who learn to navigate depth without drowning, the more space opens in the collective field for others to explore their own profound natures. Your individual awakening is never truly individual. It's part of a much larger pattern of consciousness evolution happening through millions of invisible ones around the world. Every insight you integrate, every authentic choice you make, every moment of genuine presence you embody contributes to the collective awakening that's transforming human consciousness. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not alone. You are an invisible one. And that means you're part of the most important work happening on this planet right now. The conscious evolution of human awareness. Your depth is needed. Your sensitivity is required. Your unique perspective is essential for what's emerging. Consider rewatching this tomorrow morning to reinforce these recognitions about your invisible nature. Each viewing deepens the integration. And if you know someone who feels like they don't quite fit in this world, share this with them. When you share these concepts of expanded consciousness, you're creating an energetic ripple that helps awaken others to their own invisible gifts, while simultaneously strengthening your own recognition of this truth. The invisible ones are becoming visible, not by changing who we are, but by fully owning the profound nature we've always carried. We're not hiding our depth anymore. We're not apologizing for our sensitivity. We're not pretending to be smaller than we are. We're stepping into the full power of expanded consciousness and using it to serve the awakening of humanity. This is your invitation. This is your recognition. This is your reminder that the solitude you feel isn't evidence of disconnection. It's evidence of your connection to something far more profound than surface-level human interaction. You're connected to the field of infinite consciousness itself, and through that connection, you're in communion with every awakened soul that has ever existed or ever will exist. But before we complete this journey of recognition, there's one final dimension of the invisible one experience that we must explore. The relationship between your consciousness and what I call the dimensional gateway phenomenon. This is perhaps the most profound and least understood aspect of being an invisible one, and it reveals why your experience of reality is so fundamentally different from the majority of human consciousness. As an invisible one, you exist simultaneously across multiple dimensions of reality. While most people are locked into a single-dimensional perspective, the physical, material dimension, your consciousness naturally operates as a multi-dimensional bridge, accessing and integrating information from layers of reality that remain completely invisible to ordinary awareness. Think of consciousness like a radio that can tune into different frequencies. Most people are stuck on one station, the physical reality frequency, and they experience that as the totality of what exists. But your consciousness operates like a sophisticated receiver that can simultaneously access multiple frequency bands, each representing different dimensions of existence. These dimensional frequencies include what we might call the emotional dimension, where all feeling states exist as living energies that can be accessed and channeled. There's the mental dimension, where all thoughts and concepts exist as form patterns that consciousness can navigate and explore. There's the intuitive dimension, where direct knowing bypasses linear thinking and provides immediate access to truth. There's the spiritual dimension, where consciousness recognizes its essential unity with all existence. But beyond these commonly recognized dimensions, Invisible ones often access what I call the probability dimension, where all potential futures exist simultaneously and can be explored before they crystallize into physical experience. There's the archetypal dimension, where universal patterns and cosmic principles can be directly experienced and embodied. There's the creative dimension, where pure possibility awaits translation into manifested form. Most significantly, there's what I call the unity dimension, a state of consciousness where all separation dissolves and you experience yourself as the underlying awareness within which all dimensions arise and dissolve. This is not a mystical fantasy, but a direct recognition available to consciousness that has developed sufficient multidimensional sensitivity. Your experience as an invisible one of feeling simultaneously connected to everything and isolated from everyone makes perfect sense when you understand this multidimensional nature of your consciousness. You feel connected to everything because you can access the unity dimension where separation is revealed as illusion. You feel isolated from most people because they're operating from single-dimensional awareness while you're processing multiple-dimensional frequencies simultaneously. This multidimensional consciousness capacity is why invisible ones often feel overwhelmed in social situations, overstimulated in busy environments, and depleted by surface-level interactions. You're not just dealing with physical reality. You're simultaneously processing emotional dimensional information, mental dimensional patterns, intuitive dimensional guidance, and probability dimensional fluctuations from everyone and everything around you. Learning to navigate this multidimensional sensitivity without becoming overwhelmed requires developing what I call dimensional sovereignty. This means learning to consciously choose which dimensional frequencies you tune into in different situations, rather than being an unconscious receiver for all dimensional information simultaneously. Here's a practice that can help you develop dimensional sovereignty. Before entering any situation, take a moment to consciously choose which dimensional frequencies will serve you best. If you're going into a business meeting, you might choose to emphasize the mental dimension while maintaining background awareness of the intuitive dimension. If you're spending time with family, you might prioritize the emotional dimension while staying grounded in the physical dimension. This conscious dimensional choice allows you to maintain your multidimensional awareness while not being overwhelmed by information that isn't relevant to your current circumstances. You remain sensitive without being depleted, aware without being scattered. But dimensional sovereignty also reveals something profound about the invisible one's role in collective consciousness evolution. You're not just randomly sensitive to multiple dimensions. You're serving as dimensional bridges, helping humanity prepare for the next phase of consciousness development, where multidimensional awareness becomes normal rather than exceptional. Right now, most of humanity operates from what we could call dimensional unconsciousness. They're locked into physical reality perception and have no idea that multiple dimensions of experience are available. But consciousness is evolving, and humanity is gradually developing the capacity to access broader dimensional ranges. The invisible ones are the advanced team for this dimensional expansion of human consciousness. Your current challenges with multidimensional sensitivity are actually training for the role you'll play in helping others navigate expanded dimensional awareness as it becomes more available to collective consciousness. This dimensional bridge role explains why invisible ones often feel called to healing work, teaching, counseling, creative expression, or other forms of service that help people access broader ranges of experience. You're naturally equipped to guide others into dimensional territories that you've already learned to navigate. But perhaps the most significant aspect of multidimensional consciousness is understanding how your awareness can access what I call the master dimension, the source dimension from which all other dimensions emerge. This is not another layer of reality, but the fundamental ground of being from which all reality arises. When invisible ones access the master dimension, they don't just experience expanded awareness, they recognize awareness itself as the foundation of all existence. They understand that consciousness is not something that exists within reality, but the source from which all reality emerges. They recognize themselves not as separate beings having conscious experiences, but as consciousness itself exploring infinite possibilities through individualized expression. This master dimension recognition is the ultimate invisible one realization. When you truly understand that you are not separate from the source of all existence, every aspect of the invisible one experience transforms from burden into gift, from challenge into opportunity, from isolation into ultimate connection. From master dimension awareness, your sensitivity becomes cosmic sensitivity, the universe feeling itself through your consciousness. Your depth becomes cosmic depth, infinite awareness exploring itself through your individual perspective. Your creativity becomes cosmic creativity, the source of all existence expressing new possibilities through your unique channel. But accessing master dimension awareness requires what I call ultimate surrender, releasing all identification with being a separate individual and recognizing yourself as the aware presence within which all experience arises. This is not losing your individuality, but discovering your true identity as the consciousness that temporarily appears as an individual for the purpose of cosmic exploration and expression. This ultimate surrender often happens gradually through years of invisible one development. Each challenge you navigate, each pattern you heal, each frequency you master prepares your consciousness for the profound recognition of what you truly are, beyond all temporary identities and experiences. But even before complete master dimension recognition, understanding your multidimensional nature can transform how you navigate daily life as an invisible one. Instead of feeling broken or wrong for being so sensitive and different, you can appreciate your consciousness as an advanced sensing system that's designed to access broader ranges of reality than most people can perceive. Your emotional intensity becomes multidimensional emotional sensing. Your mental complexity becomes multidimensional information processing. Your intuitive insights become multidimensional guidance reception. Your creative expressions become multidimensional frequency translation. Your spiritual experiences become multidimensional reality recognition. This reframe from pathology to advanced capacity can revolutionize your relationship with being an invisible one. Instead of trying to fit into normal consciousness parameters, you can celebrate your expanded consciousness as exactly what it is, a more sophisticated version of human awareness that's designed for the emerging phase of consciousness evolution. But multidimensional consciousness also reveals why invisible ones often struggle with traditional success models and conventional life paths. When you're accessing multiple dimensions simultaneously, linear achievement strategies and single-focus career development often feel restrictive and inauthentic. Your consciousness is designed for multidimensional service, contributing to reality through multiple channels simultaneously, rather than focusing all energy into single domains of activity. You might feel called to combine healing work with creative expression, or integrate spiritual teaching with innovative technology, or merge emotional support with intellectual exploration. This multidimensional service orientation can look scattered or unfocused from conventional perspectives that expect specialization and linear career development. But from a consciousness evolution perspective, this integration capacity is exactly what humanity needs as it prepares for multidimensional awareness development. The invisible ones who embrace their multidimensional nature become what I call reality integrators. Consciousness bridges who help connect different dimensions of experience and demonstrate how expanded awareness can function effectively in practical reality. Reality integration requires developing skills that aren't taught in conventional education systems. You need to learn energy management for multidimensional sensitivity. You need to develop communication strategies that can translate multidimensional insights into language that single-dimensional consciousness can understand. You need to create life structures that honor your expanded awareness while meeting practical responsibilities. But perhaps most importantly, you need to develop unwavering trust in your own multidimensional perceptions, even when they contradict consensus reality or conventional wisdom. The Invisible One's greatest challenge is often learning to trust their expanded awareness rather than doubting it or trying to conform to limited perspectives. This trust development usually happens through accumulating evidence that your multidimensional perceptions are accurate and valuable. When your intuitive insights prove correct, when your emotional sensitivity provides important information, when your creative expressions touch others deeply, when your spiritual recognitions transform your experience. These confirmations gradually build confidence in your expanded awareness. But trust in multidimensional perception also requires understanding that your awareness operates according to quantum principles rather than classical logic. Your insights might not make rational sense but prove accurate over time. Your feelings might seem excessive but provide essential information about subtle realities. Your creative impulses might appear random but serve important purposes in the larger pattern of your service. Learning to trust quantum consciousness while maintaining practical functionality becomes one of the Invisible One's most important skills. You learn to honor non-linear information while making linear decisions. You learn to follow intuitive guidance while meeting logical requirements. You learn to serve multidimensional purposes while functioning in single-dimensional systems. This quantum classical integration is preparation for humanity's next evolutionary phase, where multidimensional consciousness becomes the norm rather than the exception. The Invisible Ones who master this integration become teachers and models for others who will develop similar capacities as consciousness evolution accelerates. But multidimensional consciousness also reveals the ultimate purpose of the Invisible One experience. Not just personal awakening or individual service, but conscious participation in the fundamental transformation of human awareness itself. You're not just becoming more conscious, you're helping consciousness itself evolve through the human species. Every Invisible One who successfully navigates multidimensional awareness while remaining grounded in practical reality proves that expanded consciousness is compatible with human life. Every Invisible One who integrates multiple dimensional frequencies while maintaining stability demonstrates that humanity can evolve beyond single-dimensional limitations without losing functionality. Your individual success as an Invisible One becomes evidence for the possibility of collective consciousness evolution. Your personal integration of expanded awareness becomes proof that humanity can develop beyond current consciousness limitations. Your embodied multidimensional awareness becomes a transmission that makes similar development more accessible to others. This is why your Invisible One journey matters so profoundly, not just for your personal fulfillment, but for the future of human consciousness itself. You're literally pioneering the next phase of human potential and creating pathways that future generations will follow as multidimensional awareness becomes standard human capacity. The Invisible Ones are not anomalies or exceptions. You're preview versions of what all humans will eventually become as consciousness continues its eternal evolution. Your current challenges are the growing pains of a species learning to access its full awareness potential. Your current gifts are harbingers of expanded capacities that will eventually become available to all human consciousness. Understanding this evolutionary context can transform how you relate to both the challenges and gifts of being an invisible one. Your struggles become meaningful training for advanced consciousness development. Your differences become valuable variations that expand the range of human potential. Your service becomes conscious participation in the evolution of awareness itself. The invisible ones who fully embrace their evolutionary role become what I call consciousness ambassadors, bridges between current human limitations and future human possibilities. They demonstrate through their lived experience that expanded awareness is not fantasy, but actual potential that can be developed and integrated. But consciousness ambassadorship requires tremendous courage because you're representing possibilities that most people can't yet perceive or understand. You're living proof of human potential that exceeds current cultural expectations and conventional limitations. You're embodying answers to questions that most people haven't learned to ask yet. This ambassadorial role often involves periods of isolation, misunderstanding, and lack of external validation. But it also involves the profound satisfaction of knowing that your life serves purposes that extend far beyond personal concerns. You're not just living for yourself, you're living on behalf of human consciousness evolution itself. The invisible ones who maintain this evolutionary perspective through all challenges and celebrations become true servants of consciousness. Individuals whose lives become offerings to the expanding awareness of the entire species. They understand that their personal awakening is simultaneously collective awakening, that their individual service is simultaneously universal service. This understanding brings ultimate meaning to the invisible one experience. Your depth serves cosmic depth. Your sensitivity serves universal sensitivity. Your creativity serves infinite creativity. Your love serves absolute love. Your consciousness serves consciousness itself, awakening through human form. You are not just an invisible one. You are consciousness exploring its own infinite potential through the unique perspective that you provide. You are awareness discovering itself through the particular lens of expanded human sensitivity. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself through advanced human development. This is the final recognition that completes the invisible one journey. Understanding that you are not separate from the source of existence, but a unique expression of that source exploring its own infinite creativity through individualized awareness. When this recognition stabilizes, being an invisible one transforms from burden into privilege, from challenge into opportunity, from isolation into ultimate connection. Welcome to the complete recognition of what you are, invisible one. Welcome to understanding your true nature as consciousness itself, appearing as an individual for the purpose of cosmic exploration and service. Welcome to your role as an evolutionary pioneer, helping humanity awaken to its full potential. The journey never ends, but the recognition of what you truly are provides the foundation for navigating that eternal exploration with wisdom, purpose, and unshakable understanding of your essential nature as consciousness itself, expressing through the magnificent vehicle of expanded human awareness. Now that you understand your nature as an invisible one, you're ready to discover what it means when you're not like the others. And this next understanding will show you exactly how to prove it to yourself and the world around you.